Are we live?
Hi everyone, thanks for joining our live stream. We're going to be talking today about the next upcoming cohort for EB-1A Strong. If you're interested in joining our profile building program, please feel free to reach out to info@eb1astrong.com. We've had now 3 other cohorts, so we're just wrapping up the 3rd one. Before that, we ran a couple of tests, different kinds of programs related to profile building before settling on this one. And we're really, really happy with the progress that everyone has been making so far through the program. I'll talk a little bit about it here. We'll share some opportunities that people have been able to get through the program. We just recently filed our first EB-1A Strong case and got an approval on it, which is great. And then we have a couple others in the works, which are about to be filed. So it has been pretty successful so far. Actually, I'll go into who this is for first, because I think that's very important. We are not targeting this towards early career professionals who are looking for a fast track to EB-1A or EB-1A in the far, far future either. I have a lot of YouTube videos that talk about EB-1A, so early career professionals, especially those from India, may want to look into it and just have a general awareness of the category and start building their profile through professional activities, professional involvement, and development. But this program is not for that group of people. This program is for people who want to be able to build their EB-1A profile and could reasonably be able to do it within 6 months to a year. For you to successfully build an EB-1A profile and have it rounded out and be able to target the activities that really matter, you need a basis for applying for the classification in the first place. So if you're really early career, you should definitely look at the EB-1A as a longer process, probably over 5 years at least. Some people may need 10 years before they can apply for this category. It's not a short process, and you do need to generate real expertise, real acclaim for yourself out in your field. It cannot be manufactured. So for EB-1A, what we're doing for this profile building program is we are looking to see if you have that expertise already, if you have the substance, like the things that actually make you extraordinary. And then what we do is we help you showcase that extraordinary talent, that extraordinary ability, so that you get those opportunities that show acclaim. So we will help you network, we'll help you find opportunities where other people have the chance to recognize your work, acknowledge your expertise, invite you to various things, appoint you to various positions, and that kind of thing. So you need an anchor criterion. I talk about anchor criterion in a lot of my videos. You need that before you join the program. That's not something that you can build. It's not something that you can really, go after, grow, and develop outside of either a job or a passion project or something like that. You do need that first. You need that basis. Once you have that, if you go through our program, we teach you how to find these opportunities and how to advocate and network for yourself. We do not have a pre-scripted group of activities that we refer you over to. There may be a few recurring things that happen from industry to industry, and we can say, oh, this worked in that case, or that worked in this other person's case. But those are actually pretty few and far between. The best EB-1A profiles have fully custom opportunities. And those are things that you will be able to generate for yourself based on your expertise. So based on your real life qualifications, skills, and everything that really matters for the EB-1A. So we coach you through a lot of outreach, a lot of networking. We vet opportunities for you. So if you have any kind of membership association that you want us to look at, we will look at the bylaws and we'll go through with you how to assess and how to validate that opportunity. We'll also have a bunch of suggestions for you to pursue. If we've seen something recently online, we can refer you over to various resources. But the best opportunities are the ones that we have never heard of and that we don't know about and that you know about because they are important to your very specific niche of expertise. So this is more of a coaching kind of cohort where we are teaching you how to build your profile. It's not going to result in a ready-made case, packaged up nicely and handed over to you. It definitely sets you up as an expert, and you have to generate your own acclaim. That being said, it's really successful. So the people who get into this mindset really do well with building their profiles, and they're not getting fake opportunities or things that don't really matter in their industry or in their field. They are actually getting opportunities not only that we can highlight for EB-1A, but that are really good for their career growth and overall career as well. Like there are definitely activities that people are working on right now that will result in promotions in the future, will result in future opportunities for them to serve professionally in higher level roles, bigger reputations, more satisfying work at a higher level. And so the people who take it seriously are doing this for more than just EB-1A. They're doing it for themselves, for their career, and they're finding it to be highly satisfying. I'm filing a few cases right now, and I'm actually having to tell my clients, don't do like overkill. Like at some point you do have to pull back a little bit for your own sanity. You can't keep going at 100 miles an hour. So it's actually okay to maybe do 2 or 3 opportunities a year instead of the 10 plus you were trying to pursue over the last one. So once you get into that mindset, sometimes it can be harder to scale back. It's definitely something that is infectious, and once you get the ball rolling, everything kind of moves along with it. But yeah, it's a good place to be in for sure, because it demonstrates that you have that real acclaim in your field, and that you are doing things that matter for your particular industry. All right, Jason, any questions you think we should go over here?
So most of these questions don't have to do with EB-1A Strong.
Okay, so we can get into a few of these at the end. I guess just a couple other things on EB-1A Strong. I should talk about format and everything. So it's run over 6 weeks. We usually meet on Thursday afternoon or evening, depending on if you're East Coast or West Coast. So afternoon West Coast time, evening East Coast time. And then the 6 weeks we go through usually a learning session each week where we deep dive into one of the criteria. We have an ongoing tracker where we're tracking your opportunities. We share updates and results every week. And then we do one-on-one sessions with me, and then breakout sessions about networking, outreach, and all of that with Jason. So that's our typical format, and we do run everything in 6 weeks. Now, you're not probably going to be ready to file in 6 weeks. I do usually tell people this is a program to get you ready to file in 6 months. So, some people will be sooner, some people will be later. You can continue to build over a year or two if you need to, but this is the jump start, right? This is what gets you going so that you can finish up the profile building and what opportunities are valuable for you to target, so you're not wasting your time. So that's the format of the course. And then as far as opportunities that people have received or obtained when going through this program, there's a lot across all different categories. So people have judged hackathons, obtained peer reviews, published papers, gotten memberships and fellowships, been highlighted in the media, received awards. Like every category almost for EB-1A has been something that we've been able to work on and coach people through. As far as specific opportunities, like a couple people were able to get conference committee positions for various IEEE conferences. And that works very well for judge of the work of others, and then also potentially for membership, depending on how prestigious the committee is and how much of a formal position it is. We've had people get fellowships. We've had people join advisory boards. We've had a lot of people be quoted as experts in the media for media that they did not pay for, but that they are sharing their expertise with reporters who are genuinely interested in hearing what they have to say. And then we've also done a lot with peer review. So we coach people all the time on how to get peer review opportunities through the community. So through the cohort that we're running, we talk to them about networking with their professors, either at their alma mater or at local universities, and then talk about outreach as well. So who to target outreach to, how you should approach that outreach, what you should say when you're doing that kind of outreach. And a lot of people have been able to get peer review opportunities just based on that. It does require some work. It requires some volume. Whenever you're doing outreach, you got to dedicate yourself to actually doing it. But a lot of opportunities have come up as a result of that. All right. If you do want to join, again, we are putting together the 4th cohort in the next couple of weeks here. We expect to start in early September. The total cost is $1,500, and it's a 6-week program. So if you have any questions, feel free to email info@eb1astrong.com. You can also put in your application form for it with your LinkedIn profile, and we will start to put those together in the next week or so here. Jason, anything else we should cover? I'm happy to go into more general questions as well, but I want to make sure we cover everything we need to on EB-1A Strong.
Yeah, I think that was most of everything I wanted to bring up.
Great.
Yeah, the program is more about teaching you how to build your profile and the tools you'll want to know really well in order to build a strong profile. And the focus is going to be having you be able to build a strong profile on your own and not rely on a lot of these more generic opportunities that are floating around right now. Or let's just go into general questions.
All right.
Do officers heed ResearchGate publications?
So not usually if they're only published in ResearchGate. ResearchGate is an interesting kind of forum because they do collect publications from other publications. So they do index them in a similar way to Google Scholar. They keep track of your citations, downloads, reads, that kind of thing. So a ResearchGate profile can be useful, but ResearchGate also allows for self-publishing, and you could publish something on ResearchGate and then track the citations, downloads, and everything from there. ResearchGate is not considered a publisher. So if you author an article and publish it on ResearchGate, it's not necessarily published, right? It's just self-published. It hasn't been accepted for publication as a scholarly article. So if you're thinking about an article like that, then no, it's generally not considered to be authorship of scholarly articles. That being said, I use them in the NIW context. Sometimes I use them in other case contexts. I just don't use them for EB-1A.
Can H-1B workers volunteer in other startups on non-paid positions to expand the startup in terms of funding, projects, team size? Can such volunteering acts be used in the NIW EB-1 petition?
So this is a real gray area. Anytime you're contributing to a for-profit company's operations or mission, it's assumed that that's work, right? And if it's not specifically authorized work, it means it's unauthorized work. So you need to be very careful in how you're assisting startups and how you're assisting any for-profit company or giving any kind of consulting. Obviously you can't be paid. If you are paid and you're doing like normal work, it is considered unauthorized work. If you're not being paid and you're doing it on a volunteer basis, I think the question in some officers' minds come up as to why. Like, why would you do all of this for free? And if the officer thinks that there's some kind of, like handshake agreement for stock or equity or other compensation, it is paid work. And so again, it takes that out of that gray area and into clear unauthorized work and a violation of status. If it's a really early stage startup and you are just advising on a purely volunteer basis, it's probably fine. I do recommend that you run those activities through some kind of formal organization. Like Boston University has the Build Lab. If you run it through like some coaching or mentoring sessions in the Build Lab, it's expected that you volunteer your time, and it is kind of offered as a professional or a community service. And then I think it's fine. Like, it's not unauthorized work at that point in time because it's clear that there is no remuneration arrangement, and it's done more for service. So the more you formalize things, the more you run through actual organizations rather than just one-on-one on your own, oftentimes the more legitimate it is. Now, I have used these kinds of informal consulting kind of things in the past when claiming judge of the work of others. And so sometimes it works. It can work. It can be fine. I will just say be very cautious, and I'm not endorsing these as like a general activity because I know that the line can be really difficult to determine and people can get in real trouble by doing this in the wrong way. So just be careful. So yes, these volunteer acts can be used sometimes, maybe, but be very careful because they can also raise questions.
All right, I'm going to give other people a chance to ask questions. I have 295 citations so far. I've been working in the field for over 10 years, working for a large federal organization, etc. Regarding the judge roles that I am not able to find opportunities, not sure where to start, I've been in touch with Jason and going to take the subscription and get to know the tools, I guess. Not sure how close I am to file the petition.
So if you have authored papers and if you have this number of citations, you really should be able to get peer review opportunities. So I would want to dig in a little bit further as to why that hasn't panned out for you yet. The journals, the conferences that you've published for should want you reviewing their other articles. So I would really focus and reach out to them. And if you're not getting those opportunities, I would want to dig a little bit deeper into that. It might just be the way that you're doing the outreach. You always want to do outreach where you are offering your time as a volunteer. You don't want to frame it as what you can do for me. You want to frame it as what can I do for you? How can I help you? That kind of thing. So you really should be able to get peer review. And if you're doing authorship with a high citation count, oftentimes I think the officers might expect that you have some peer review for judge role. So yeah, I would want to take a closer look at this for sure.
Actually, can I switch my EB-1A green card to an EB-2 W to remove the employment field condition after getting the first green card?
I mean, if you have your green card, you can't apply for another one. I think you may mean something else, and I'm not quite sure what you are referring to as far as the employment field condition either. If you want to post a clarifying question, I would be happy to answer that.
Well, Amber, I am Naga, cybersecurity architect from 7 years in USA. Came as a student F1 to USA. Post-graduation, I got OPT and then H1B. So upcoming September, my current H1B will be completed. I will just get 1 year extension. I would like to file O1 instead of H1B extension. Also, thereafter EB1, may I get process info?
So you're looking for information about the O1 because you want to change from H1B to O1. I really recommend keeping H1B if you can. If you're getting the 1 year extension, it means the perm is in process. And so your chance of getting that I-140 approved is really high. And if you can get that I-140 approved and then go on to an indefinite H1B, that is going to be, in the vast majority of cases, your best case scenario. There may be some limited cases where filing the O1 makes more sense. Usually that's if you are trying to start your own company and become an entrepreneur. So this is a kind of scenario where I think I would want you to schedule a consultation so we can go through what makes sense in your individual scenario. But as far as looking at O1 and EB1, yeah, you can definitely do these things. And I would encourage you to look at EB1 for the future. It's just something about this scenario and wanting to give up the H1B doesn't make sense to me. And I'd want to look at that further before advising further.
On EB-1A, comparable evidence, please. How many of comparable evidence could one present? More than one eligibility criterion?
Yeah, you can do comparable evidence for the entire case. Like, you don't have to meet a single EB-1A criterion to get it approved, technically. Now, I think that's a really, really bad idea, and I don't think it has very high success rates or chances of approval or anything like that if you only relate or rely on comparable criteria. I will also say the RFEs that you get on comparable criteria are really nasty a lot of the time. If it comes to a decision between submitting a case with 3 criteria and they're relatively strong, and then maybe including some comparable criteria, I usually just submit with the 3. Like, I don't go overboard on claiming comparable criteria because I do think it tends to trigger RFEs rather than avoid RFEs. Now, I do know some other attorneys who file with comparable criteria all the time. I'm not privy to all of their RFEs or denials or approvals or anything like that. Which is, in my experience, it's very messy. I don't think a lot of USCIS officers get training on comparable criteria, and I don't tend to include them with my cases, at least not most of the time, very rarely.
I have reviewed grants and scholarships for a community development organization foundation I worked for. Can I use it as an evidence for the criterion of reviewing and judging the work of others?
So if it was done in the course of your employment, like if this is part of your job duties, then you cannot use it for judging in the majority of cases. I will say occasionally I will get it through with that kind of claim, but it is very likely to be questioned by USCIS. The more judging activities you can do outside of your organization, the better your chances of getting judge roll approved are going to be. So the answer is a maybe. Like maybe you can claim these, most likely you cannot. And you will want more. You'll want more beyond your organization.
So I'm getting questions over messages as well.
Mhm.
Another question, I've noticed that many consultancies operating offshore attempt to build profiles by misrepresenting information and sometimes fake things. Will this affect new filings, given that USCIS is likely aware of these practices? I'm also concerned that even strong, genuine profiles might be subject to increased scrutiny as well as a result.
So, I mean, you should definitely expect increased scrutiny. That's going to be a huge focus of USCIS over the next 4 years or so. And definitely a lot of various journals, organizations, people, like they are apparently being reported to USCIS through the fraud tip line or whatever. So we know that's happening. You should expect scrutiny. And so when submitting an EB-1A case, I would just look at it as, is everything that I've done to get this opportunity good? Like, would I be comfortable fully disclosing and explaining everything that I did to get this opportunity? And if the answer is yes, then you can include it in your EB-1. You can't eliminate all scrutiny, just like you can't eliminate all normal RFEs in the normal course of filing the EB-1A. You just want to be in a position where if you are asked questions, everything is obviously fine. That's the best position to be in. As far as other opportunities being either lower quality or being legitimate when you did them, but then you find out that the organization is now doing sketchy practices, which is definitely a thing I've seen. There's not much you can do there. If you can cut those, like identify those things and cut them out of your petition just to avoid the questioning, I would probably recommend doing that in a lot of cases. But there may be some cases where you have to rely on some of that evidence. And if so, you should just expect the scrutiny, and then you should explain exactly what happened and how you got the opportunity and why it was important back when you got it, even if circumstances with the organization have changed now. I do think though that like reports have been overblown, and there's like a full-scale panic in EB-1A aspirants about whether or not what they're doing is fake or real. Everyone just needs to take a step back and answer that question from a like real perspective and not just what will USCIS think perspective. Like if you take a step back and you realize, oh, the activities that I'm doing do seem pretty shady and weird and maybe fake, then you should be worried. But if you take a step back and you're like, nothing I've done is wrong, everything is actually really good for my career, should be notable or recognized in my field and is genuine and real and has a real basis, then you should not be very concerned. I mean, you should keep up on the trends to see, like I said, if you had a legitimate opportunity and then the organization has since started doing sketchy things. So you should keep tabs on the present and on the trends, but you don't need to worry if everything you are doing has a real basis. And many of you may have gotten caught up in all of the hype around EB-1A profile building. And so there are a lot of people that I've talked to that have some shady things on their record and then some very real, very legitimate things. You can just drop the shady things. Like, as long as you are not presenting them to USCIS saying, like, this is the basis of my extraordinary ability, it's fine that you publish an article in a weird, sketchy journal. It's fine that you paid for some media publication to be on, I don't know, like Tech Bullion or something like that. None of those activities are wrong in real life. They're not illegal. They're not fraudulent. They're only fraudulent if you make them out to be something they're not, right? Like, they're only fraudulent if you submit them to USCIS and say, this is like my top qualification. So don't worry about having done some of these or getting caught up in the hype. Just proceed realistically and strive to present a profile where you are only sharing things with USCIS that have real meaning for your field or industry. It just requires a mindset shift. That's all. I would not panic. Don't worry. You should only be worried if you were trying to mislead the agency.
That's also something we talk a lot about within EB-1A Strong, and pretty much everyone who's come out of the program has now a pretty good sense of what is legitimate and what is not.
Mhm.
That's a big part of the program as well, being able to teach you how to vet opportunities and also have you share opportunities for vetting, just so that you and everyone in the program understands what is considered high quality evidence and what is not. I think understanding what is considered high quality, that should offset most concerns. I think where people are getting tripped up is they don't know how to tell between a high quality and low quality opportunity. So they're just
Yeah, and just adding on to that, I think a lot of that is the hype, where there are too many people saying this is what works. And they said this is what works in the past, so this will work now. And too many people are trying to sell profile building as like a series of steps that you take and a series of opportunities that you obtain. And once you have all of those, you're good to go. And that's just not like relevant for most of your fields. You need to demonstrate that you are a top expert in your field of expertise. So it needs to be customized. You need to find those custom opportunities and experiences. A lot of it is hype. So like Jason was saying, a lot of people don't know how to tell what's real and what's fake, but it is easier than you think. Like, if you take a step back and you really ask yourself, what matters for my field or industry? What would my boss think is impressive? What would other tech leaders in my industry think is impressive? Like, what do other people really see as legitimate? You have your answer, right? If your boss or your leaders or anyone else is going to look at your resume of profile building activities and just like have a huge question mark and be like, what is this? Then it's probably not a high quality opportunity for your particular field. But if they're looking at your resume that you're putting together through profile building and they're like, oh, this person is setting themselves up for the next step in their career to become even more of a leader, then it's really great. And you know that you're on the right track. So I do understand that when it comes to some opportunities, it is hard to tell. But from a big picture view, that's what you want to pursue for profile building. Like, it's not just about meeting a USCIS checklist. It is about proving your expertise and your acclaim in your field. And that is what matters at the end of the day. All right, I do have to wrap up the live stream here. Is there like any important question, Jason, or should we wrap it up now?
Do you have time for one more question? If not,
Yep.
we can just wrap.
Yep, one more question.
So I'm working for a public university doing data analytics for large-scale federally funded research studies focused on COVID-19 asthma, COPD, etc. I've co-authored over 8 publications and have 100 plus citations. More coming soon. Apart from this, I'm not sure if I would be qualified for other criteria for EB-1 can be shown as critical role with recommendation letters.
So it's not immediately striking me as a good EB-1A case. It does seem like a viable EB-1B case, and then definitely a good NIW case. Now, you could look further into EB-1A. There might be some things that we can claim and you might be able to put together an EB-1A profile. But I would do a consultation on this for sure, because there are some different options that you can explore here, and probably not a single one that's immediately the right choice.
All right, that's all.
All right.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you all so much for joining. If you want to join our EB-1A Strong cohort, just visit eb1astrong.com and then submit your LinkedIn profile through the link. We will vet those and start putting together the next cohort here. All right. Thank you.